Hey peeps, it's Tripl-L, and today I'm here to talk to you about the early One Piece chapter, 839, I Shall Never Forget the Debt That I Owe You. And what can I say about this chapter, guys? Well, we're just doing impressions, and my impression is, I freaking love this chapter. I love it so much. And I just want to say, usually people say these kind of chapters are kind of boring because there's no fighting and, blah, blah, blah. They just want to see the fights. But, battles are always going to be there. There's always going to be a manga that has a battle that week. There's a whole genre dedicated to battles. I'm totally okay having a moment like this chapter, because it just builds things up. It builds things up to a higher extent, to a greater fever point. And how could I not appreciate that? Especially when it gives some subtle hints, or it just plays with the emotions of one of the characters, or it plays with oh god, there's a severe danger outside of this territory. And how can I not get invested in this kind of chapter? I very much love it. I very much love this chapter. I do want to say though, just very quickly, thankfully it's not overdone. These kind of chapters, when they're overdone, they get to be horrible, like when King Riku was inspiring his citizens for the second time, and that took up a whole chapter. Those kind of chapters are unnecessary. This kind of chapter though, it involves one of our main characters, and I think it does really well by him, and seeing the interactions in this chapter were very well. Well, it was very good. It was very good. Anyway, let's just get into it. Before that though, there was the Kochikame tribute at the beginning of the page. And when I was first reading this chapter, I was thinking, oh, maybe the title is kind of also referring to Kochikame. Maybe Oda was kind of maybe he's talked to the author before. Maybe he feels indebted to that author. Who knows, right? I've also seen the tributes from the Toriko manga and the Shogeki no Soma manga, and they're very funny tributes. It's nice to see all of Shonen Jump kind of doing this. Anyway, about this chapter, let's get into it. When we actually find out what the chapter title was referring to, and it's Old Man Zeph, I was scared. I was very scared, because this is a very, very big problem, and I don't even want to imagine what kind of feelings Sanji's going through when Judge brings out the whole thing about Zeph and how they know where he is. We knew that Big Mom had the intel, but that they're actually going to go far enough to press Sanji on it is absolutely horrifying. And the fact that they know as well that Sanji really values his hands, that's something that you just can't get with regular intel. So I really want to believe that Big Mom has some kind of Big Mom has someone in her party that has a devil fruit power that allows them to get this kind of information. And it's most likely the three-eyed girl, if that is Pudding or her twin. I really don't know what's going on with that, and we need to find more information about that. Regardless, back to this. The whole thing with Zeph presents a very interesting conundrum that we can kind of try and work out, because we know at the end of the day, Zeph's safety has to be secured by the end of this arc. Heck, the safety of all the Straw Hats and all their families have to be secured by the end of this arc. So when you take it into that perspective, because if Luffy goes out of his way to piss off Big Mom could very easily destroy Nami's family, could very easily destroy Chopper's family, could very easily destroy the Fankry family, could very easily, well, maybe not easily destroy Luffy's family because of certain characters that might be involved in that particular area, or rather involved with the characters of that particular area. Anyway, the Big Mom situation needs to be dealt with in a way that ensures the safety of all the families of the Straw Hats, or all the friends of the Straw Hats. And that's very difficult, right? Because there's very little opportunities or routes that Luffy could take to avoid Big Mom's wrath. And so when it comes down to this, to eliminate the kind of threat towards Zeph, here are the things that I think need to happen. One, the Vinsmoke need to be utterly defeated, and defeated enough that they won't want to try and mess with Sanji at this point. And then secondly, Big Mom has to either be super defeated, or they have to somehow become friends. And we know that these things are kind of being established with the Vivre card. But when you have a situation where families that aren't involved with the Straw Hats' life of piracy might be in danger, it's a very tough situation. But I think it bodes well, right? Because we know One Piece has to have a happy ending. So we can assume that something's going to happen, that they're able to turn the tables to the point that having Big Mom's information won't be as big of a deal anymore. Anyway, that's all about the Big Mom and the Zeph stuff. I'm horribly terrified for Sanji. But let's talk about the interesting dynamic that occurred between Sanji and Ichiji in this particular chapter. What can I say? I think it was absolutely awesome to see Sanji putting him in his, or talking down to him and sticking to his morals about food all the way through. And then when Cosette shows up, the chef, man, Oda did a really good job at making her very likable. Well, not likable, but he made her a very innocent character, and it was nice to see how happy she was from Sanji defending her. But now, there is a very, very interesting little dynamic or little panel that occurs in this chapter, and it's when Ichiji is calling Cosette over and he's about to throw that plate at her. There's something very interesting that Sanji does, and I think this speaks a lot to his character. Sanji goes out of his way, and he goes to catch the plate. Epic moment, because Sanji's like, yeah, I'm not going to let you hit a woman, like, are you crazy? But what ends up happening in this particular chapter, or in that particular scene, is the little follow-up panel after Sanji grabs the plate. The meatballs slip off that plate altogether when Sanji grabs it, and they're slipping off because I guess they're wet. We know that it was a kind of creamy texture from what Ichiji was saying, so it was kind of slimy. And they slip off the plate and they hit the ground. Now this is important because this goes back to Sanji's thing about wasting food. And mind you, Sanji does later go to the ground and eat it. And that's just him and his whole thing about eating food. But the thing here was that the way he caught that plate and the way he didn't bother to stop those meatballs from falling in the first place by turning the plate upward, I want to think it suggests that, and we can kind of like try and verify this too, the way, how do I say this? Sanji's thing about hitting women comes first before his thing about wasting food. And that might make sense if you take into account that he learned the thing about food after he met Zeph. And chances are the thing about not hitting women came from his life as a Vinsmoke. So that one might be a serious point of contention for Sanji. And that just speaks to what kind of thing that he has to go through to kind of establish that kind of behavior. Regardless, Sanji protecting Cosette was a nice moment, a very nice moment. And to later see her get beaten up the way she did, it was unfortunate. It was very unfortunate. You know, I have no problems with Sanji's thing about not hitting women. The fact that he will let himself get beaten up to the point he has done in the past while still holding up to that moral code, it speaks very strongly for Sanji's strength as a character. And people might not like it because they might see the simpler ways to just fight the girls. But it's like, no, then he'd be like everyone else in the crew. Why can't he have this moral? If he has a severe issue for not doing it, then at least respect that he upholds to that moral. And that way, if there's ever a situation where he actually does kick a woman, it's like, oh shit, things just got serious. Anyway, among the Vinsmoke, they have that whole thing about what Royal should do. Like, whatever, Vinsmoke, you guys suck. Like, just get kicked in the face already. But we see Reiju. Reiju has some interesting impressions here. She's thought that Sanji was a gentleman, and she's smiling. Really, is it wrong for me to want to have her be a Straw Hat? Like, oh, come on, man. Please, please, please. Come on. It'd be great. It'd be brother and sister, and it'd be kind of cool. Like, oh, whatever. Anyway, we end off the chapter with Yonji pretty much godding Sanji on about, yeah, it's probably Ichiji. And it's just strange that Yonji's kind of like helping Sanji in a way, but it might be a thing because Yonji already got beaten up, so instinctively he's like thinking, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go with this guy because he could punch me in my face, or sorry, kick me in the face. Anyway, they go and they see Germa's secret, which is that they're producing clones, I assume. So now the big questions are, why are they all wearing sunglasses in those tanks? And secondly, is Cosette a clone? Because then that doesn't, that would be unfortunate. Regardless, there's that clone army that they're making, and it's really gross. And I just think, okay, well, this will be interesting. But this doesn't seem like that interesting of a reveal in the grand scheme of the story. But it's kind of interesting towards the Vinsmoke. Anyway, we'll have to see what happens there. Let's see. Anything else I want to talk about this chapter? Oh, they mentioned Reverie and how Judge being outside of Reverie to him means that they're closer to their goal. So maybe we'll get more about that like within 10 chapters ideally. right now it seems like we're gonna be heading towards this thing about the clone army and then the lunch with Big Mom and Pudding. I do want to see the interactions between Big Mom and Pudding and Sanji. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be really cool. Anyway guys, like I said, I very much love this chapter. Let me know what you thought, and till next time, have a good day.